Hey everybody, and welcome back. We are on to video number 4, I believe. We've talked a lot about the economics side of things lately, and this is all of social studies. So we're going to switch gears a little bit and focus a little bit on some history topics, one of which has been in the news a lot, and that is the Olympics. So we're going to talk about the history of the Olympics, the original Olympics back in ancient Greece, and then we'll bring it back to today, and even still, we'll still relate it back to things happening in the world with the coronavirus and everything else. So here we go. The Olympics started back in 776 BC. So this is a long time ago. This is 2,700 some odd years ago. This originally was created not as what we think today. It was not between different countries. It was between the different Greek city-states. So you had Sparta, you had Athens, you had Ionians, you had all these different Greek city-states. And every 4 years it would rotate, and they would go and they would compete together. And as many things were in Greek society, this was to honor a Greek god of Zeus, the main Greek god, the head honcho, the biggest of them all, who supposedly lived on Mount Olympia, hence the Olympics, which did take place in the city of Olympia at different points. Who was allowed to participate? So the Olympics were open to any 3 Greek males. It could be anybody. It could be from the lowest to the highest, but really it came down to the people in the military for obvious reasons. If we're having an athletic competition, it's going to be athletically fit people. So over 2,700 years ago, the first Olympics takes place, and it looks very different than what we see today. So let's talk a little bit about how it did look here. So the original events. First off, the fun fact that everybody likes to always talk about is that the original Olympics were, in fact, competed in the nude. So they did participate naked when they hosted these original Olympics. And then here are some of the events that took place. First off, you had your simple running events. You had a track, and they would run around these tracks. In addition to that, I should have jumping events in there as well. So your long jump, your high jump, your standing broad jump, all those normal running events. Then you had your throwing events. You had your discus, you had the javelin, you have a version of the shot put that existed here. So you did have throwing events. So your normal kind of track and field that you see today. A different one is the chariot race. I went all out today. I drew the horse. It doesn't look very good, but I tried. This is why the guy yesterday was just pushing the plow by himself with no animal. So the chariot race. So the chariot race, as you would guess, they hop on the chariot, the horses run around the larger track, and they would compete that way. One of the unique races, let's see if we can't screw up the pronunciation, the hoplitrodromus. I'm sure that's not correct. I'll have to ask my Greek friends. This event was in full armor. So whereas most of the events were naked, this event was with full shield and armor involved. So that would be definitely a challenging thing. And then you had your fighting events. So as you can see on the bottom here, you have boxing. Boxing, much like in a lot of ways like it is today, they did wear gloves, but instead of their gloves being protective, they were actually added pieces of metal to the gloves so that they would be more violent. So they wanted to see some bloodshed here. I don't have it up here, but wrestling would be another event. Wrestling, you started in a standing position, and they would wrestle back and forth. And if you hit the ground 3 times, then you would lose. And so you were out if that took place. And then finally, one of the favorites here, let me slide over, is the pancration. This event would be kind of like mixed martial arts is today. It was a combination of boxing, wrestling, all-out brawls going into this. There were 3 major rules in this event. There was no biting, there was no gouging of the eyes, and there was no sticking your finger up the other person's nose. You know, normal rules in a fight. So that was it. Other than that, you would fight until someone would surrender or until a lot of times someone died. There were a lot of deaths that took place in the original Olympic Games here because of how far things went. So those would have been the original events, drug out over several days. Mix in some big feasts to honor the gods, some music, some acting, some shows. It was a whole spectacle, this event was. It was such a big deal. In fact, there was one story of when the Persians were invading from the outside world, from the Middle East. that they could barely get an army together because the Olympics were going on at the same time. So the country is being invaded, and people would rather go to the Olympic Games than go fight off an invading army. So very, very popular for the ancient Greeks and all the city states. So a bunch of men competing in these events naked, quite the festival. All right, so what happens? Who wins? Well, they only honor one winner. So only first place is going to be honored in the original Olympic Games. You would receive the famous wreaths that we think about. That's the best I can do of a wreath. That doesn't look like a laurel at all. A laurel you wear on your head, so it might be olive branches, it might be celery actually one year, it might be pine, whatever it is, some sort of plant put together in this beautiful crown that you could wear. Not a lot of money originally at the Olympics, but you could make a lot of money back locally. You were very famous when you went back to your city state. You were a celebrity now. Oftentimes you could get political power. And so there's a lot involved in winning the Olympic Games. They continued on for over 1,000 years until 393 when the Romans popped in. And thanks, Romans. The Romans invaded and they outlawed these games because of the Greek culture that it was associated with. So for many years, we did not have the Olympics at all. The Romans take over, then the barbarians invade, and the whole world breaks into all these conflicts, yada, yada, yada. And then in 1896, we get the Olympics back. So they, because of where it started, they did start in Athens. Luckily this time, they did decide, hey, let's wear some clothes this time. So they did not participate in the nude. All sorts of events were added. If you watch the Olympics now, you know it's everything from shooting to canoeing to track and field to basketball to everything. All sorts of events. New events are added all the time. Some of them it would not seem really take a whole lot of athletic ability at all. I'm talking about curling, other events of that nature. That's obviously a Winter Olympic game, but there's many events that are not necessarily about fighting tooth and nail to the death like the Greeks would have wanted it. So the Olympics continue every single 4 years in our modern Olympic Summer Olympics. And then they also decided we should add the Winter Olympics. So the Winter Olympics are started in 1924 in France. Definitely glad that they decided to wear clothes this time. Snowboarding naked would probably not be the best choice. So these Olympic Games have existed ever since. Every 4 years we've had them. There's been all sorts of different events that have happened at it. There's been teams that have boycotted Olympics. There's been places that we've called off the Olympics during times of war. But for the most part, the Olympic Games are seen as a time where every 4 years the world can come together and we can compete in a structured way that is supposed to be peaceful and provide unity. That is until this year. If you follow the news, you know that in 2020, this summer, we were supposed to have the Olympics in Tokyo. Due to the coronavirus, the COVID-19, they have postponed the Olympics. They will now take place in 2021. So next summer, for those of you that were looking forward, really a sad thing if you think about it, the amount of time that a person has to put in to training for the Olympics, and the amount of dedication, they've done the trials and the qualifying, and they've committed their whole life to this coming summer, and they have to push it back to next summer, unfortunately. The next Winter Olympics are in 2022, and those will be in Beijing. So we will have back-to-back years, which usually the winter and summer alternate every 2 years. So a little difference there. So that's a quick history of the original Olympic Games, and then when they came back with the modern Olympic Games. Hopefully everybody is staying active physically and educationally out there, and in doing the best you can to stay sane at home during this kind of weird time here. So everybody have a great day. As usual, feel free to like, feel free to subscribe, share it out with your friends. Let everybody learn about the Olympics, even though they are being postponed this year. Have a great day, everybody.